And welcome to another episode of Straight Talk. I'm one of your hosts today, Michael Stock Sr., and we have with us today the usual
Ross Montour
and our special guest,
Timmy Norton.
He's here with us as a community member, and he's going to sit in on the whole show with us. Welcome, Timmy.
Yeah,
it's been a long time that I haven't seen you talking about issues or being on camera.
Yeah, well, I've been kind of quiet lately, but it's starting. Things are starting to stir up in the community, so I'm kind of glad that you invited me here today.
And we're glad that you had come. I mean, we always talk about that all the time, about having different community members come onto the show and sit in on the whole show, or come in and just talk about issues that concern them, or things that are going on in the community, or something that they may be doing that the community doesn't know about, and we want to give them more information. So we always said that that chair is always open. We also have an extra chair if somebody else wanted to come at the time. But remember, it's always open to anybody if you want to come. You know, we're I think it's March 28th today. We're taping Wednesday. Usually we're taping every second Wednesday. When it comes on, hopefully we'll either be before or after whatever we talk about, but we're taping on the 28th in the afternoon. So there's been so much stuff that's been happening in the community lately, and you know, we talk about this all the time, and it's, I guess, jumping right into the events that are happening in the community. We recently we had a very tragic death that happened in the community. Yeah. We've talked about the security of the community before. We talked about what should be done, the patrols. There was men's meeting. There's so many different things that have been transpiring over the years, but it seems that it's gone to a different level this time.
Yes.
Well, we're dealing with tragedies, you know. Tragedies like you just, you know, I mean, whether something like it ever happened before or not, you just never want to be dealing with it, you know. It's one of those things where you'd say, gee, not in our community.
Yeah, you know, our condolences to the families that the situation, you know, as most of you may have read in other media, that there was a murder. There's, you know, it's tragic for both families that something like that had happened, and you know, our condolences go out to both. It's in the courts now, and I guess there's a lot of information out in the community that is going around. You know, it's not up to us to I guess agree or disagree with anything, but we're here more to talk about not only that a tragic incident or a murder had happened, what they're calling it in the paper. The police are saying that the person that was involved is being charged with murder. It's not the first time that it happened in the community. Hopefully it doesn't happen that often, but people are making correlations to, well, if there was more patrols, where would the police, some of these things you can't really prevent.
No, you know, the sad part is that we'll talk about things like home invasions, and Timmy will get into a little bit what his involvement has been trying to protect the community from things like that. But those are things that you can plan for, you can talk about, strategize about. But with something like that, what happened last week, is you just never know when something is going to happen, when something is going to explode to that level of violence. In this case, you don't know. You don't know. It's just like if you had a heart attack, you don't know when the Widowmaker is going to hit you.
Well, I wish I would know before, so I try to prevent that. But
yeah, one of the things I guess that's important to say is, because they're part of what you talked about the stories going around the community, is that, like, this murder had nothing to do with the break-ins, you know, because that was the first thing that came out. Oh my God, somebody, you know, got caught breaking in and they got killed, you know, something like that, because it happened at a cigarette store, you know, or near a cigarette store. That was the you know, the thing that was out there immediately, you know, and the peacekeepers and the SQ both have confirmed, you know, that there's no way that these two things were connected. You know, there was no breaking being attempted at the time. It was what it's being said as two people got into an argument, and it turned ugly. It turned bad.
Was it?
The break-ins have been happening. Like you said, this is the 28th, and it's been about a week, maybe almost 2 weeks now, and there has not been any break-ins at all. I spoke to the peacekeepers this morning, and they've confirmed that they've had no reports of any break-ins. So it's kind of quieted down, settled down. But that's part of why you asked me to come on the show today, is to talk about that. Why did I decide to do something about it? And I organized a men's meeting a couple of weeks ago, or just last week actually, and I saw these things happening in the community, and I was getting concerned. They were right in my neighborhood that it was going on, and then all of a sudden it happened right in my family. My daughter's home was broken into, and it was a terrible thing. I know it's bad for these other people, and I was feeling bad for them. But when it's almost like it happened to you. That's how I took it. It happened to me. My two grandsons, live in that home, and they were away on vacation, enjoying themselves. And we had to contact them and tell them that somebody broke into your house. It's a terrible thing. You feel victimized and helpless and angry, and there's just so many feelings that you go through. And it didn't even happen to me. It happened to my daughter, but I love my daughter, I love my family, and you don't want anything like that terrible to happen. So right then and there I said, well, I have to, I got to try to do something. Like this has to be stopped. Something has to be done. So I did, I decided to put this out there and try to get some as many men. I called it a men's meeting, but I invited women as well too, because women have good ideas too. I'm not saying they don't, but I premised it on the fact that men are the protectors of the community. As our traditional way, we protect the community. It's our job to protect the community. So we had about 25 people. There was about 18 men that showed up. It was a good meeting, good discussion, very respectful, and we talked about things that we could do, to prevent or to make, just to make the community feel more secure, because everybody's afraid. They're all, they're sitting at home and they're scared. The elders, everybody. It's just like, am I going to be next? That kind of thing.
What were some of the suggestions or comments that people were making? Well,
it came down to, in the end, there was nothing like, oh, this is a wonderful idea, like let's do that. It was basically the same stuff, which is good. It's not to say it's the same old thing. It is good stuff about keeping an eye on your own neighborhood, in your own area, walking around, doing what you can. Jeremiah Johnson was there, as you know. He started a neighborhood watch himself, or tried to start it. It got kind of thrown off the tracks there for a little while, but he was there and gave his ideas of what, and he's still out there doing it, as is the Longhouse, the 207 Longhouse is out there as well. They've been out there for, I think it's over 6 months now. I think Kenneth Deere had mentioned it, and they've been out there every single night on their own, with their own money, their own gas, and they're patrolling the community. So, and then the other thing that came out was the curfew came up again. It's not to say that it's these young kids that are doing this, but there is still a problem with young kids being out late at night. I know several years ago that was talked about, but it kind of fell on the side. The peacekeepers can't enforce it. There was a bunch of different reasons given why it couldn't be done, but that was one of the things that, to try to at least keep kids off the street. Again, it's not necessarily them. We came up with like a profile of who might be doing this, and they're from town. The Balva Albany and Victor Bova home invasions were from out of town. They were non-natives that, and may have been directed by natives to come in there, and but the profile of between 18 and 30 years old, because they got to climb and do all kind of things. They have to be in good shape, and they're not working. They don't work. And this is what they do.
May or may not be on
money.
drugs.
Yes, that is definitely probably something that they could be addicted to gambling. They could be addicted to cocaine, crack, whatever, and that's how they're getting their money, because they don't have a job. So like parents, if you have an 18, a 20-year-old living in your home, and they're not working, they have no money, then all of a sudden they're like out every night partying.
Don't turn a blind eye.
Where are you getting your money from? I mean, it's a tough one to say what to do about it, but that was brought up at the meeting as well too. Aren't these people noticing this? You see you see your son, he's 21 and he's not working and he just sleeps all day, and then all of a sudden he's got all kinds of money, you know, and there was just a robbery, you know. Kind of like, you know, maybe try to do your own investigation, or, you know.
Yeah, I think it more is to be more aware what's going on, and you know, even when we were younger, if you came home and you had something, or your bike, it didn't belong to you or something, there was a lot of questions. Believe me, you didn't have to. The police didn't have to do it. The parents did it, and you had to make sure that came from somewhere.
Sometimes there wasn't a lot of questions.
Yeah. We'll continue. And we'll cover a lot more of that, because I think that, you know, most of the show is we're going to discuss a lot of those issues. But naturally, we have to take a break, and we'll do that, and we'll come back right after these messages. And welcome back to Straight Talk. Before the break, we were talking about, I guess, community safety and security, and some of the things that have been going on, some of the things that we're trying to prevent. And the last train of thought that you had, Timmy, was about, you know, if there is somebody in your family, and all of a sudden that they don't have a job, or they don't, you know, they're coming home and they have brand new TVs and different things like that. It's a matter of trying to ask questions and to, I guess, you know, try to take care of each other. It's some people just turn a blind eye to it. You know, I've seen that so many times in my career with the police, that sometimes the people in the house know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they're aware of everything that's going on, and they just allow that to happen. And it's their neighbors that end up getting.
You mentioned during the break about if you brought a bike home when you were a kid, you know, and your parents would be, you know, where did you get a bike from?
The worst thing to say was, my friend gave it to me.
Yeah, you know, and you know you got it, you know. That's what they talked about during the men's meeting, was they remember back then when it was like that, you know, when they had the curfew and you were running home, and if you were out past it, like, and somebody caught you, your neighbor or something, and they would kick you in the butt, you know, and get home, and you didn't run home and go tell them and say, oh, they kicked me. You went home and you hid, you know, because you knew you were doing something wrong, and that's how today, if you look at a kid sideways, they're going to call the police on you, they're going to charge you with assault.
Well, this is the thing that was just getting to a minute ago, was, and we can ask the questions. All of a sudden, you know, there's like a $500, $700 iPad in the house or whatever. How did you get that? But in a larger way, it makes me wonder, like, it's time for a gut check in terms of where our values are at. That we even have to even consider asking those kinds of questions. Like, why would he? You know, it's like, how do we get to a point where a kid is 21 years old and he's sleeping all day, and he's not working, or it's like, you know, I'm not being judgmental about it, but those are questions like, how do we get to that? You know, I mean, once upon a time, you know, it's like, as a kid, like, you should go to the golf course and go caddy. And you know, you don't have to be made to go do that.
You know, it's funny.
Money.
But you know what's funny is, because we can sit here and we can talk about that, because I think we're all over probably 50. But you know, the needs and the things that happened then, the pressures that we had then are nothing like the pressures that the kids have now. I'm not taking anything away, but you know what? The keeping up with the Jones when I was growing up wasn't that hard to do. You know what I mean? We all were basically, they didn't have 4 or 5 flat screen TVs, and everybody didn't have a cell phone and stuff like that. If you either had a new bike, or you had a bike that you put together from the dump, which was better than the person's who got it there before, did the dump before you. But today there's so much pressure, and I see it all the time, that these kids, like, when you see a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old with a cell phone, an iPhone that's worth $700 or $800, and they're texting somebody,
and we're having arguments in the school about using electronic.
Don't bother me, because it's my parents bought that for me. What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? So the values have changed. We're buying the kids stuff instead of spending that extra time or to do something.
It's important to say what you said, Ross, about that, where you don't want to be judgmental about these 21-year-olds. They're at home, they're not working. There is no work in this community as well.
Yeah.
There is no work. It's very hard to find a job. You talked about going to the golf club. Yeah, that can still be done, and there's other things you can do to make a few dollars here and there. But we also have to look at the fact that these young men are addicted to cocaine, like I said earlier, crack,
to drugs,
so they need help too. We can't just condemn them and say,
It's a good point.
Because one of the things that I spoke about that wasn't said at the meeting, but to another man that I spoke to just on the street, and he said, "Oh, it's a good thing what you're doing. You know what we need to do?" He says, "We need to go and find these guys as soon as we know who it is, take them out in the bush and beat the crap out of them." Is that something we want to do? No, of course not. But that's some of the thinking. And another guy who said, "I have my gun ready. My gun is by my bed. If anybody comes in my house, you got no right in my house. You're going to pay for it." And we don't want that kind of thing to happen to these young people either.
And
they're in trouble.
And that's the thing is that we've been talking about to try to avoid. We talked about it, I think, even on the last show about taking the law into your own hands and doing that. Protecting yourself is one thing. Going out and taking it, because we've talked about the last time there was an incident where two people went and beat somebody up because apparently that they broke into their house. Now, whether or not that was true, but that was the information that was coming across social media at the time, and that was a reality because the person had gotten beat up because supposedly or allegedly because he had broken into somebody's house and done something. So people
were paid to do it.
People were starting to do that. So that's what we don't want to see. We don't want to see that. Obviously, depending on the generation that you were brought up in, it was more acceptable before. But still, there people that are in that situation or individuals, they do need help somewhere else. If it is an addiction, then how do you have to try to deal with.
But I think that's the point. So you say, like, as a community, you have to do some soul searching, things like what you're involved in. That's a form of that. That's what you're doing, and it's not coming out of a reaction to go in with pitchforks and torches and a rope to go not lynch mob, but to say what can we do, and so everything gets put on the table.
Yeah. But I think but more so it's to notify the right people to deal with that. Meaning that if it is, then the family should be contacting somebody to help them with that addiction. If they're doing something and you're aware of it, then you need to contact the police to do with that. If you're going to make a pattern of doing this and you're going to continue and it's not going to stop, then there's consequences to whatever you're going to do. And that's what we have all these things to do. But
part of the reason that I also decided to do this, to get the community aware, people aware that there's people out there who are watching you. If you remember in the 1990s, they had the drug meetings, they had marches, they had all kinds of things going on. And the drugs at that time, the drug dealers were scared. They were sending people to the meetings to spy. It kind of died down. They were hiding. And my thinking was this could possibly do the same thing. We're out there, we're watching you, cut it out, stop it. And I don't know if that's what happened, but like I said, in the past 2 weeks there has been no break-ins or anything. It's gone completely quiet. We hope that it stays that way and there's not going to be any more, but I that was one of my hopes of that. We're out there, we're watching you, cut it out.
And then it's in that, like, we're always trying to deal with the safety and the security, and as parents, as neighbors or that, we're always trying to look out. If you hear something, that you always try to do that. It's just that you have to be more vigilant now. Don't take things for, well, it's just a neighbor because they were making noise last week. Doesn't necessarily mean is it them this week. You should still call somebody to go there. It's always better to have the police go instead of yourself in the event that something happens. But also protect yourself. And we talked about that social media issue, is that it was like there's so much things that go on there, and people tell everything that they do, and we said that the last time. not only honest people are watching that, right?
Yeah, honestly. No, I mean, it's honesty, yeah, for sure. Well, hold a thought. Well, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with more Straight Talk after these messages. And welcome back to Straight Talk. Before the break, we were talking about, again, community safety. Or we were talking about, really at that, the point of our discussion as we went to break was getting into more about how information is disseminated in the community. And social media is a reality of the day. Facebook being the #1 source of social, I don't know if you call it networking in the community.
Yeah.
But as like anything else, you know, from any kind of media can be good. It's only as good as what you put into it.
Yeah.
And so that's always because things can happen. People go on there and without confirming anything, you'll be putting information out there, which is rumor, unsubstantiated, things that will harm somebody emotionally, somebody, whatever. So a lot of, you know.
Well, I wanted to bring up something about that, about Facebook. I'm not on it. I don't go on it. I was on it before, and I just didn't like what I saw on there. So I'm totally, you know, against of that and the things that it can do. It does have its place. There are good things that can come out of it, you know. But you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a good place for some people to be, young kids or, you know, whoever, you know. But it's there. It's not going away. It's a $1 billion industry. It's not going to go away. It's always going to be. But you have to be careful when you're on there of what you say on there, because it's recorded, and thousands, millions of people can read it. You know, whether they're off somewhere in Russia, who cares what's going on here? But right in this town, people are looking at it. They're seeing it. They're seeing this information, and has it been sent out to the community? You know, or not? You know, is it correct? You know, and I want to bring up something that happened to me. This was before Facebook. You know, I put something out on email that cost me a lot. You know, it cost me 2 weeks of my job, and it, you know, and it was my mistake of putting it on. I made the mistake, and and this kind of thing happened. That's what can happen to you. You can lose your job. You can get beat up in the street, because you know how Ganawage is. You know, that's how they handle things. A lot of people still do. You know, what'd you say about me? And punch their face. You know, it happens. It's terrible, but it does happen. And that's why you have to be careful of what you put on there. I've heard of it where people said, well, they're not on it, but then all of a sudden somebody went up to them and said, you know what they're saying about you on Facebook? What? So they went on there, they looked, they checked it out, and then they wrote a terrible thing on there about that person, and then there was a big trouble and problem after that.
And what people we discussed this, but you know what people have to realize, or should realize, or should know, is that whatever you put out there is public, regardless of whether you think that it's not. It is, and whatever that you put out in public you're liable for. But some of the things that Timmy was talking about is it's true. Is that if you put something now, later on, if you put a picture of you now at 22, 24, and at 30, 32, you're trying to get a job somewhere, and you had put out a picture of you mooning somebody, it might not be appropriate for that job. And if they look, they say, well, what kind of character is that person? You can't take that back once it's there, and you can't say, well, it was only sent to you. It's private. It's not. Anything that you write and that goes on to the World Wide Web, it's that. But you know what? 2 occasions I had where somebody was on, when I was on Facebook, I was looking, and it was 2, I'll say, teenagers. And one was that they said something about another person at their school, that they were going to do something to them. And I sent something back. I said, you need to take that off. You're going to get in trouble. And then I told their parents to go and check and have them remove it. And then not long ago, somebody said something about the school. And I told them, take that off. And I told their parents to tell them. So I didn't just leave it, because I seen that the implications that could happen. One, they can get arrested, they can get suspended from school. They could, there are so many different things, but as a 14, 15-year-old, they're frustrated or they're mad at somebody. To them, it's like I'm just joking around. But nobody looks like that anymore. If you say to somebody that I'm going to kill you, you're getting arrested. If you say that I'm gonna burn a school down, or I'm gonna do that just jokingly, or that I hope the school burns down,
recorded, it's on record,
or that I hope it burns down, or that this person, or that, you know what, anything you say, then if somebody goes and make a report to that, you're getting arrested, 100%. And then it's, how do you say that that's not true? I was just fooling. Yeah, but you put it out to everybody. So
you mentioned about having your record, that on record, you did something stupid at 22 and you're going for a job at 32. I've read in the paper that companies do that. They Google your name when they're going to decide if they're going to hire you or not. They Google your name and they look at
check your
what
Facebook
you've done
page.
on there. You know, if you're on there and what you've done, they do that. That's part of their human resources research on.
As a matter of fact, there was a discussion just today on the social network thing about that very thing, and somebody says, "Well, you know, the Supreme Court ruled that they can't ask you." Companies can't ask you to give them your Facebook thing.
But they don't have to hire you.
Wait a minute. Hang on. Slow down. Okay? Because, maybe they can't ask you your, all they're going to do is Google you.
That's it. That's
Google. They don't need to
It's
get
simple.
you to give them any of that
It's
stuff.
simple
They
to
have
do.
And the same person is arguing, well, privacy. What are you talking about? Privacy? No privacy on the worldwide freaking
your
web.
kids is on there.
Nothing
your
is private.
pictures,
And
your
now,
dog.
before the program, Jimmy was telling, you were telling us that Facebook is not doing this thing where there's a certain period of time. You could remove anything that you have on your book from there now, but after a certain point, it's going to be there forever.
It becomes permanent in your record. Anybody, like I said, when you're 80 years old, they can Google you, and this is what you were doing at 12. Not that it could bother you at that time, but it's still like, why would you want to have all this information about yourself for the whole world to see? Like, that's what I don't understand, you know. And it's gonna happen. I don't. They gave a time when they're gonna give people a chance to take off the stuff they said, and then after that, boom, whatever's on there, it's permanent. You can never get rid of it.
And now the way what they're saying is that the way the search engines are working is that they're profiling the individual. So anything that you search for, anything that you look at, anything that you do, all those things, it's profiling you. And anytime that you go back on, it automatically will show you what your history of the profile that you had done. Mm-hmm. So even though you might have looked at something that you may not want to look at later on.
You went to a porno site. Let's be clear here.
But you know what I mean.
You don't want people to know that, but it will be on there.
And you're in a relationship, or you're not in a relationship, and then you know what I mean. So all these things are going to be part of your search engine profile, which is and I don't know.
It's part of the brave new world. You know, I mean, Big Brother is here now.
You know, we used to complain that some
magazines.
We used to complain that if somebody was to tell somebody about what you did, or if somebody filmed you or took a picture of you, no, it doesn't matter. You're doing it to yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's on the lighter side anyway, but I mean, there's a darker side to social media and stuff like that. But we're going to take another break, and we're going to come back to wrap up the show and talk about more of those, and we'll do that right after this message. And welcome back to Straight Talk. If you were watching us earlier, the show's pretty well been about the security of the community and some of the things that are happening. We touched on a lot of different things and different areas, but at the end of the day, it still comes down to what can we do to keep or to make our community safe. There are things that we have no control over. The tragic situation that happened, it's going to happen. You know, unfortunately, we're not immune to that being in this community or not. But there's been a lot of home invasions. Timmy said, in the last couple of weeks that there hasn't been any, which is good. if we knew why, it would be even better because then we have a model somewhere. But what do we do? How do you keep your neighborhood or your home safe and stuff like that, and try to lessen the chances of you getting, because to eliminate it was almost impossible.
It's basically what, you know, the peacekeepers and everybody else has been talking out there about it is, you know, better lighting at your home. And, you know, if you can afford to get the alarm systems and that, not everybody can, but if you can, you know, we don't want to become this armed community with bars on our windows and things like that. You want to feel safe. So it's basically about that, about in your own little neighborhood, keeping an eye out, you know, getting up if you can during the night and just taking a look outside. If you see somebody, if you see characters during the day or any time that shouldn't be, you know, they just don't belong around, you know, stop them. It's hard to do that. I know people have a hard time to do that, to stop somebody and say, what are you doing here? But you have to be polite, you know, and explain to them, you know, we're having some problems right now in the community, and we're just trying to keep an eye out on the neighborhood. Most people will be polite and say, oh, okay, oh, that's good, well, I'm here for this, you know. But that's the kind of thing you need to do. You can't just walk up to people and say, you know, what are you doing here? You know, you got no business here. You have to be polite and be nice about it, and try to keep an eye on your neighborhood, you know.
I mean, or call the police. I mean,
Yeah.
Now, you know, it's always been a thing in this community. As soon as you see somebody that's out of the ordinary, or like it's funny because when we go somewhere else, I wonder if we stick out like a sore thumb. That if somebody comes into our community, that they stick out like a sore thumb. You know, you can be in a restaurant, somebody walk in, and it's somebody that's not from that community, whether they're native or non-native, and everybody like sort of looks around and like, you know, like you notice it. But in your neighborhood, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
If somebody's frequent in your neighborhood, even if it's somebody from the community that's not normally in that area, and you see them a lot of times in that area, maybe that they're checking out, trying to get into your house, or finding ways, or checking when you're home and when you're not home. So it's important that you know who you see in the day or time, something that in the event that something does happen, or a vehicle or stuff, call the police, and or let your neighbors know that I'm going out and there was somebody around. Always, you know, more communication, and I guess more being proactive and more vigilance.
And we can't, I guess, put down the actions of the peacekeepers either. You know, they can only be in so many places at a time.
We're not doing that.
They're doing their job. They're doing the best they can. You know, we're saying we're going to go out there and you know, do our own patrols, but they, you know, they're there, and they're there anytime you need them. You just make the call, and they're there within minutes. They're there, and I see them in my neighborhood, you know, a lot. They pass a lot. They come through. They do their patrols. So it's, you know, it's about just all that put together, you know, and that could help us to feel a little bit more secure. Checking in on your neighbor if you know that they're alone, they live alone, you know, just checking in on them.
So, I don't know, it probably goes without saying, and probably most people would know this and say, well, but a simple thing to protect yourself, we're talking about social media. If you're going to Cancun, don't announce it on Facebook. You know, don't brag about all your toys on Facebook, okay? Because you're letting people know. You're letting people know.
You're telling them what you have. And in some cases, you're showing them. You're showing them your house, you're showing them your layout. Look at my new house. You just gave me the plan on how I'm going to get in your house, and I don't even have to be there. So even though you're trying to, like, you want people to see those things, sometimes there's a negative effect to it, and it's always like that. But one of the other things one of the other things that people are talking about, and I want to get into it just before that, is this. They're saying that all these things are happening now. Do you think that if there's a casino that it's going to get worse? Because some people are saying yes, and some people are saying they don't know.
So that's a tough question to answer, because they have their surveys out there that they've done, their research that, you know, the crime does not go up. You know, we base that on that. Personally, if you want my personal opinion, I don't think it's going to get any worse. It's already here. Whatever they're talking about drugs, about organized crime, whatever, it's already here. The thing that scared me about the casino is that when the murder took place on Facebook, someone connected that together somehow. That
Yeah,
was
but
on
that's what
Facebook too.
and people are saying that, you know, and that was part of the arguments that actually the last two times about it, and there's a referendum coming up. They announced now that they have an electoral officer,
Yeah, Michael Scott.
Michael Sky, who's going to be running the elections. I guess we'll know soon when the elections, the referendum.
Yeah, that'll be his first task is to pick a date for the referendum.
To set a date for the referendum, and then we're back again, right? We're back again to see what happens. You know, it's only time will tell whether or not it's going to make things better or make things worse. Is we can't all go, I guess, on the stats of everything else. You know, depending on who you talk to, some stats will say that it does make things worse. Some will say it doesn't. I guess everybody has to judge for themselves whenever that comes. Security and safety in the community, you know, the police are saying that they want to do SWAT training. Is that going to help us? I don't know. You know, it's like they're saying a lot of. We had a survey, didn't we? Had a poll.
Yeah, on whether or not we should have SWAT training.
Yeah, and a few people had taken it, and it was more people said that it should happen than not. You know, a large majority of people said that, yeah, let them go. You know, so you know, I guess on a plus side for them, but
you know, especially again, the murder. Our peacekeepers are not trained to investigate murder. They're not. So they have to bring in an outside force, which doesn't sit well with the community. They know they have to do it. It has to be done, but it doesn't sit well with the community, you know. So if our peacekeepers can do drug raids and do things like that without the assistance, because that's what they've stressed, it's without any other police forces involved. They will do everything. They will have the expertise to do all that.
Yeah.
Then I think it's a really good thing, and it should happen.
I guess one of the unfortunate things in regards to that is that we're not big enough yet to be able to afford to have a department specifically for those things, and we need to bring in bigger outside police to be able to do that.
How true is that for other communities of about the size of Kahnawake in terms of population?
Nobody has it.
Nobody has it.
No, nobody
so
has
they all got to use MEC
Yeah.
or.
Yeah,
It's the same.
Even the surrounding communities,
Even
or
they-
Chattagee,
So we're not any different.
They
No,
can't
we're not any different. Is because of the training and the equipment and everything else that goes along with that department. That's why they have specialties, and then that's what they do. Unfortunately, we're not there, and it would be too expensive for us to have that. And the only way that I think something like that would actually work is if all the native communities were to form something. You know what I mean? But then logistically, how would that work? You'd have to have a special task force to do that, and then, you know what I mean? That's some of the things that we talked about as the SWAT the last time. If you had Mohawk, and then how does it go from Ontario to Quebec to, you know, and then so. But any type of training more than that they have is always good for the community.
Yeah.
It helps us. We don't have much time left. If any last words on the security and stuff that's going on in the community, or
It'll be any more meetings.
There was nothing set at that time, but you know, I'm open to it. If people think that we should have another meeting, then you know they can contact me, and I'll organize it again. I wanted to have it outside at the open space, because then you get the people who are just passing by, and that we ended up because of the miserable weather, we had it inside, but that would be good. I would be open to do something again like that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
and Ross.
No, look, you know what? The one thing, and I don't think we talked about it, and maybe we could spend a minute or two on it, you know, at some point. But the thing with the shooting, you know, somebody had said that they were planning on approaching council to advocate for a gun registry in Kahnawake. And we don't have time to talk about it now, but maybe that's a question you can put out to the people. I personally don't think it does anything. It's very complicated. Even Canada finally gave up on its. And in fact, is people are going to go and do you harm. They do not buy guns through normal channels and register them.
And that's the whole premise in why the National is going, and they're destroying the records and they're getting rid of everything, is because like nationally, it's not working because all the guns that are happening in crimes and that aren't registered to begin with.
Yeah.
So a criminal is not going to go and buy a gun and then commit a crime with it. So that it's kind of difficult. And then in this community, we have what's called like internal security weapons, which we don't want nobody to know about anyway. And that's a community-wide thing. People may or may not know about that, but we have that. And that was one of the arguments that even as a community we made to the province and the feds, that we're not going to register our community protection weapons, so to speak, and we're not going to tell you what they are. So that was another issue, you know, I mean, over the years that had happened in the event of an invasion in our community from an outside entity, put it that way. So with that, you know, we're wrapping up another show. I think that, you know, watch out for your neighbors, protect yourself, and call the police if you see anything that's in that area. Once again, our condolences to both families of that tragic incident, and hopefully we don't see something like that in our community for a long, long time. And all the best. Welcome. Thank you very much again, Timmy, for coming. It's always a pleasure. And Ross, another good show.
And hopefully 2 weeks' time, summer will be back.
Yeah, hopefully, because we got snow this morning.
That's not bad.
So you've been watching Straight Talk. If you have any questions or comments surrounding this show or any other shows, you can email us at hotmail at mohawktv@hotmail.com, or call us at 450-632-6397. Nyawa and Onigiwai.
Rona.
Kanya ke haga thadi adaraste kayerniga hiadu zewaderoru.